what to do here.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where two friends choke as we start a show on water, where two friends get together to discuss the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co-host, Zach. What's up?
Hey, everybody. Nothing much. I was just out in the garden, and
Excellent.
I think some beetles have laid some grubs near my near my pumpkin plants. But Joke's on them. The pumpkins are already ripe, or damn near. They're orange. That's all I need.
Yeah, that's pretty close. Usually the stem, the stem will start to dry out.
Yeah.
At the top.
So we're getting there.
Get woody.
We're gonna be ahead of time, I think. Actually, already...
yeah, I think generally speaking, most like winter squashes, like pumpkins, are usually like 75 days or something.
Yeah. It's the little pie ones, so they're only
so they even have less to grow. Sure.
Yeah. They're adorable though.
Oh, maybe 75 days this week. 75 days is a lot for most annual vegetables, actually.
Yeah.
But the winter squashes might be a bit longer.
I had them in since
depends on variety.
May, so it's been all of May, June, all July. So 90 days. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. They turn over pretty quick. You gotta put them in later, or they'll continue. Most of them will just continue to fruit until winter. Until it gets too cold or the days get too short for them to photosynthesize enough energy to feed the fruit.
Yeah, and there's definitely enough our flowers still showing up, so
cool.
They're doing their thing.
Well, we're shooting the poodoo, and we just got a couple of little news bits to talk about. I'm trying to attempt to figure out how to monitor myself so I can control my voice. We also, I think, fixed the music issue from last episode. It was a little louder than we wanted, but we're still figuring it out. And unlike most folks who pay to use StreamYard, we're stubborn sons of bitches.
What the fuck is StreamYard?
StreamYard is a program built on top of the open source OBS that we use, but it's way more user friendly.
Yeah.
And it's a paid for.
This is pretty user friendly.
We're using OBS Raw Dog.
Yeah. Fuck. And VBS Ninja.
And
in order
VDO
to feed
Ninja.
Into a
VDO?
Is it VDO?
VDO. That's what my URL says.
You are correct. Video Ninja. Yeah. To feed into OBS. Doing it old school.
Which is, I think, why some of the fine-tuning audio stuff doesn't work, is because Video Ninja does not... It's not inputting all of my stuff. It's just taking the feed, so I can only manipulate a little bit on my end.
Yeah.
And I'm almost curious if there's like a cheap mixing board I can put it all through.
Yeah.
So that I can monitor myself there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trying to improve the audio visual quality constantly. As we'll also
get to content.
Yeah, and then eventually I think our content's getting better. I thought we haven't. No one's really responded. I hope some folks eventually get around to watching the one we did on human trafficking last week, because I think that was pretty good, man. We covered a lot of numbers.
It's got a few views, and then I know people are at least a few people were paying attention when I did the thing about the thumbnail.
Okay.
I think we got 6 total votes. I mean,
awesome.
People are looking.
Yeah, just a few people. If we get more shorts up, we'll probably get more people rolling in.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is what the goal is. It just takes time. And all the people who are like, wow, this is really put together well. It's like, yeah, how many people do they have helping them? Oftentimes it's many. Even just volunteers helping cut clips and thumbnails and put all that stuff together. There's usually people who are just offering their time for free. We're not there yet.
Doing it all on our own. If it looks good, it's because we've been doing it for too long.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We've been doing it a while, which is good. We keep improving. Yeah. And, we have lives, too, that a lot of folks I watch who are much younger, or maybe not even necessarily all that much younger, but, just in different places in their life, don't have kids, don't have gardens and fruit trees and chickens and pumpkins and worms and all that stuff, which takes time. It takes time to manage. I mean, shit, bro. I probably spent like fucking 2 hours today trying to find a hose barb for the air pump I bought from the hydroponic store yesterday to brew my compost tea. And I had to go everywhere, and nobody, not even Collier's Hardware downtown, which is like old school hardware store, has accumulated random shit for like probably 50 or 60 years. So they got all sorts of weird kind of rare hardware items there, and they didn't even have it. And it was because it's a 1/16 MIP, which I think is male industrial pipe. It's one of the types of thread patterns that exist. And so I forget what the acronym is, but it was 6. I think it's a 16th or a 5/32 would be more than a 16th, right? But less than an 1/8. 5/32.
5/32 is what would that be in 1/8? You have to take 8 and multiply by 4. Be 4. So it's slightly bigger than the 1/8.
Okay, yeah. Yep. That's then 5/32 is not it, because it's less than an 1/8. Because
male iron pipe.
Thank you. Yeah. I was looking for brass fitting, hose barb fittings for this air compressor to run my compost tea brewer. And I went everywhere, and Home Depot had the smallest one, which was 1/8 inch, and it was too big. So I think it's a 16th inch.
Yeah.
Male thread to connect to the front of this. And I went back, and they're like, I have no idea. And then all the ones people returned to us, right, that we were going to send back to the manufacturer, none of them have that on it.
Oh my God.
So we're like, what is going on? Anyway, I had to return the pump, and I still yet to have a pump. So I guess I'm not brewing compost tea soon.
Yeah.
And I have a 110 liter pump.
Jesus.
Which is like, it's a $150 air pump.
Yeah.
And for it to take a shit on me is really pissed me off, man.
How
I should take it apart and clean it. I haven't probably even run it a whole week. Like continuously. It runs for like maybe 24 to 36 hours at a time.
You got to go full Karen, man. Call the company.
I think I might.
Shit the bed.
And be like, I checked the filter. It's not dusty. I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
It turns on, it runs.
Got to remember not to give away too much information. So never say like, I took it apart and cleaned it and blah, blah, blah.
No. Yeah, I'm not going to take it apart until I talk to them and find out if they would do an in-house repair on it.
Yeah.
The warranty's only a year, and like
so you got to take care of it now. Yeah.
Well, no, I've had it for like 3 years.
Oh, that's what I was asking. Is how long?
No, you asked how much runtime has it had?
No. I asked how long you had it. Yeah.
No, I've had it for a number of years.
Oh, it's definitely out of warranty then.
Yeah. It's only the warranty's only good for a year, but they might be able to. They might have a program to take them back and repair them or something.
Yeah.
Because it's not a cheap piece of equipment.
I mean, I will say that if they don't, I've taken apart a lot of shit in my life, and it's usually not as complicated as you think.
That's true. All right, let's get on with it.
All right.
Because we're going to try and stick to an hour, and we've already burned 10 minutes.
We have. All right.
First article up. I just came across this in my news feed, and I thought it was it makes sense, but it was kind of like a bizarre headline.
Yeah.
So the headline is, scroll back up.
Sorry.
Families recycling totaled $7.6 million, all illegal, prosecutors say.
How can recycling be illegal, I ask?
Oh, it tells you exactly what.
Well, I want to know.
The charges allege that 8 family members redeemed about $7.6 million using smuggled containers. The criminal charges include grand theft, conspiracy, and recycling fraud, which I guess is its own category. God. The way that CRV means California Redemption Value, and then on the pop bottle, I think there's some other states that charge that redemption value. And that's why when you recycle, you're actually not getting paid for your recycling. You are getting your deposit back.
Yeah. And I didn't think so.
On every can and bottle. Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't think so. And then I was like doing the math, and I'm like, no, it is, because you think like, oh, 5 cents, like 20 of those is $1. Yeah, I should be getting a ton more money when I go to recycle. But then I was doing the math, and I was like, on average, they weigh this much. Like per pound, that would mean this much. No, that checks.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Because the thing is that aluminum is even scrap aluminum is a commodity, and so its price fluctuates based on market conditions, like demand for scrap aluminum, right? And so to just have an arbitrarily set redemption value while the price of aluminum changes is kind of, it doesn't make it, it's not a direct correlation, but that is indeed a price that consumers pay that they can opt to get back if they recycle.
Yeah. And so, last time I recycled, they actually were putting some stuff, and I had a bunch of aluminum cups from an event that I went to, and they're like, "Oh, we can only do things with CRV." Well, shit. All right, give me that. So they're not even scrap aluminum place. Yeah.
Really? Okay. That makes sense. So anyway, California's beverage container recycling program charges an extra 5 or 10 cents for beverages purchased in recyclable containers to subsidize their redemption value at recycling centers. Mm-hmm. By using containers originally purchased out of state, the suspects were able to redeem money that had never been charged. Prosecutors say. Scroll down.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Scroll down. We're reading, bro. Investigators found the group smuggled 178 tons of cans and bottles starting in October of last year. It's 178 tons in like 9 months or whatever.
Yeah.
To redeem at unofficial recycling centers in Riverside County. California's quote, this is from Attorney General Rob Bonta, who's a big piece of shit, and sends me emails all the time. Political appointee, because our Attorney General, again, I don't want to complain too much about it, but they just groom these guys for the positions they want them in. And so what the last one was, I forget his fucking name. He's now in the Senate seat that was vacated by Kamala Harris, and he was the interim Attorney General appointed to replace her. So she went to the Senate when she term limited out, and he got elected, I think, to that position to hold the position until she vacated the Senate seat when they attempted to get her to be president, but everybody fucking hated her, and she's made an absolute fool out of herself as vice president. She's done a fucking terrible job. So then he gets to fill her Senate seat. Nice. And it's just this fucking train. So Rob Bonta, maybe after there's people running against Feinstein right now. My guess is that the Democratic Party will ensure she gets reelected, and then she'll resign or retire after getting reelected.
Yeah.
And then they'll just install that guy or whoever else. And I think he might actually be from LA. He's one of the few people that don't fit the Bay Area political machine trend of California, high-profile California politicians.
Gotcha.
At any rate, Rob Bonzi's a big piece of shit. California's recycling program is funded by consumers, he says, and helps protect our environment and communities. Arguably bullshit. What is the title of the episode? Like lies or whatever?
No, is everything phony?
Yeah, he's a big phony.
He's a big fat phony.
Yeah, and those who try to undermine its integrity through criminal operations will be held to account.
So my problem is like everyone who has a house and like that blue bin and chooses to throw their cans in there rather than take them in to recycle them themselves, they're double paying. They're paying for the MSRP, and they're paying for the service to come cash in the MSRP on their behalf.
You paid for garbage when you rented a house, right?
Yes.
Did you ever look at your garbage bill?
I'm sure I did. I don't remember.
Their mandate, waste management companies are compelled to provide that can to you at no additional charge.
Oh, the blue one.
The recycling can, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Same with the composting can. They don't charge you for those, but then all they did was raise their fucking garbage rates. So, like, I have the smallest garbage can you can get, and it's like $30 a fucking month. And they don't pick it up every week. Like, sometimes they'll just skip my house. I guess when they get behind, they just, like, pick houses at random to skip. But then if you call them and you say, hey, they skipped my house... they actually go back through cameras and they're like, oh yeah, they drove right by your house and did not pick it up.
Yeah.
And because all of that is scheduled and monitored, right? Like everything's tracked with GPS and shit.
Yeah.
So they can be like, oh yeah, we looked at the camera at the time that they would have been driving by your house and they did not pick up your can. And so then they send a little pickup truck to come pick up your can.
Ours is owned by the city and paid for by taxes.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Weird, right?
Yeah, at any rate. So just to not really dwell on that article so much, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. And what a fucking... People hustle. I mean, they worked hard for that.
I mean, yeah.
It's like, oh, this is meant to safeguard the environment. And then you're like, well, then why are you mad that someone's fucking recycling?
Yeah. Like, well, because they had to transport it so far. So, they wasted a lot of gas. But
yeah, I don't even think that's that. They're just like, oh, they didn't pay the deposit fee. So it's like, is it really about reusing materials? Like aluminum is one of those things that's like, because its melting temperature is so low, like it actually does have a lot of value as something we choose to recycle and reuse that way. And
my understanding is it's reusable infinitely.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah, like
I think the aluminum quality does degrade. Like you can't take aluminum cans and make structural aluminum out of it, but I do not know. I'm not a metallurgist.
Right. Any metallurgists in the audience, hop onto the comments and let us know. Please.
And while you're there, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.
I hear the bell doesn't matter so much, but if you want to ding it, you can ding it.
I don't fucking have any bells. If I see something that's upcoming that I want to see, I'll say notify me, and then it sends a push notification to my phone. Otherwise, I have all notifications turned off. Or I would get pinged all day long. We had this discussion. You were like, I only have 10 YouTube channels I subscribe to, and every time I find a good one, I'll subscribe to it for a little while and then make a determination if it's going to replace one of the ones I've been watching or whatever. And you're like, I like to keep a small. Yeah, you said you like to keep a small.
Yeah, I do. I have 84, I think, and I hate it.
Whatever.
But I do, unless I really, really like your channel, and I'm hoping that you come back and you didn't die of coronavirus or whatever. I will get rid of things after they don't post for 3 months. Because I'm just like, you're not going to make any comment or content. Why are you taking up space?
I understand that. Yeah. But some of the channels I watch, 3 months is not that long.
Yeah. And
some produce like hour and 30-minute like mini docs on some pretty cool shit.
Yeah, like, so I have to be patient with some of them, who do that sort of stuff. Like, there's a guy, I think he hasn't posted anything in like 2 years, but it's so good. I'm just like, come on, come back.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, I've been doing this and I was doing this for a long time and then I had a fucking baby.
Yeah.
And like, because a lot of content creators I know, like when they have huge gaps, it's like, I had a baby. Or I had another baby.
One of the guys I'm watching does D&D content, and he had a baby recently, and he's like, the format's going to change a bit. We don't have as much time to polish everything. So it's like, it's going to take place in this room that we have. That we put up some fake wood paneling. You're long enough to shoot the videos, and it's just two of us in a chair shooting the shit. Like, perfect. I understand that.
All right, you got another story here about Federal Reserve raising rates.
Again? Yes.
Again.
0.25.
That's about all they do, right?
I believe it was. I believe it was yesterday.
Okay.
And I would say that anyone who needs to put things on a credit card for any period of time understands how negative that is. And I would say that a lot of people do that in this country because stuff's not great here, and so a lot of very poor people are going to be even more negatively affected paying that poor tax.
Yeah, my old roommate who I brought in straight out of a homeless women's shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not the greatest roommate, obviously. I just think moved around so much.
Yeah.
She didn't understand basic kind of courtesies when it comes to like living communally or living with other people. And anyway, I got a piece of mail today and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I stopped getting mail for her like 6 months or a year after she moved out.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? Oh, they're offering her $5,000. She can't make her rent every month, but of course banks are like, oh, let's loan you money.
Oh, fuck yeah, man. Like, if you're poor, that's when that stuff comes the most. They're like, hey, do you need a $5,000 short-term loan? We're ready to prey upon you.
Yeah, and then all that shit does is go to a fucking collector and then sit there and then tell some other person, till that collector, till the company gets tired of it and sells it to a debt collector, and then the debt collector just harasses you for a bit.
Yeah.
I told you about that one time where it was when I was trying to buy a car, and they're like, oh, your credit score is shit and you have like a collection on your thing. I was like, the fuck? And it was a video rental place here in Chico. And apparently they just had like $350 in late fees forever. And when they went out of business, as a way to get just a little bit more money out of it, they sold all those fucking $3 late fees to a debt collector. And so I just, I did what I do, man. Went online, I did a little reading, found out what the law says, and got a form letter from like LegalZoom or something for like $5.
Cease and desist.
And I straight up said, okay, I haven't lived in Chico for a very long time. I haven't rented a movie in a very long time. I don't have any recollection of this charge ever being happened. Please, within 30 calendar days, respond to me with what movie it was, when I rented it, when it was due, if it got returned to you or not, or returned to the video store or not, and what were the late fees, total accumulated late fees on that account when it closed. And I said, and if you cannot provide this, you will contact the 3 credit reporting agencies and have this removed from my credit report. The next time I pulled my credit report, it was gone. I didn't hear back from them or nothing. Because what they rely on is people who don't know better, and they're like, I just want to get my name clean. I'm working so hard to get my shit together. And then they wind up paying a fucking debt collector $150, I think is what they were trying to squeeze out of me, for a fee that I probably did owe. But realistically speaking,
you don't know that. Yeah.
That was fucking a decade ago, and it was a late fee on a movie I returned. Right? Because I didn't have the movie. And in fact, the only movie I have that I never returned, I didn't get a late fee, it was a fucking Netflix. When you actually had to like get Netflix in the mail.
Yeah. Oh, the old
And it just never got returned, because the whole thing is you can keep it as long as you want, but you won't get your next one until you turn that one in. So we just never turned it in. They're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, you won't get another one. Oh well.
Whatever. Yeah. It was just, and they probably just lost track because they blew up and like everybody was using it, and they probably just didn't have, the best tracking systems, or they were moving to streaming and they're like, we don't even want all them fucking DVDs.
We're making billions. We don't give a shit.
We don't give a shit. You're all gonna just fucking liquidate all that stuff and take a loss on it, right?
Yep.
Sell it to like some kind of wholesaler or whatever. At any rate, so you're talking about the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And credit agencies is how we got distracted. My apologies.
It is. No problem. I took a really big pill right before we got online.
Was it a gummy?
No. It's pills that have like oil in them.
Oh, nice.
Delightful.
Oh, by the way, I am over 1 week cigarette free.
Hey, congratulations,
big
man.
Deal for me.
I know. Have you told your sister?
I don't talk to my sister, and I won't talk to my sister. So
I'll tell your sister for you.
Why? Do you talk to my sister?
Yeah, I just visited her.
Oh yeah. How was that?
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, fuck that bitch.
We went to the beach. I mean, hung out, smoked.
Yeah, you just started like, oh cool, you're still kind of douchey.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Also, we've seen great progress in energy. We're not at $120 a barrel and $5 gas. That's come off, but we're now seeing a little resumption, a little bit of acceleration. So what the Fed is really trying to do is stake a claim here and say, we're not done on inflation. We're concerned. We'll go by another 1/4 percentage point because we believe the economy can absorb another 1/4 percentage.
Can you absorb another 1/4 percentage point?
I sure am relatively have very low overhead.
Yeah, you're pretty.
My only real debt is my mortgage, and it's fixed.
Yeah. Well,
and I refinanced when interest rates dipped hella low.
Mm-hmm.
So shaved like 0.75% or something.
I had another video I was going to use, but I couldn't find any good clips from it. But it was like, a lot of people who bought houses when interest rates were low are now trapped, and they were kind of postulating that perhaps that was leading to low turning over of houses because people are just like, well, I'm not going to buy a house that pretty much costs exactly what I paid and double the interest rate on it. So I guess we'll just put up with this.
Yep. No. I mean, that does affect people's decision making, no doubt.
Yeah.
My parents, they're like, we kind of don't really want to live here. It's too much to take care of, blah, 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 blah. And then they look at it and they're like, well, they're finally debt free on their house.
Yeah.
And they look at it and they're like, why would we? Because I told them, I was like, wait, are you debt free? And they're like, yeah, we just paid it off last year or whatever. I said, then why are you talking about buying a house, man?
Yeah.
They're like, taxes are so high. It's like all you owe is taxes.
Yeah, do you have any idea how high interest rates are? Have you even looked at it?
And moreover, you guys are paying taxes on a property you bought 30 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
So you're paying very low. It's like I paid 3 times the taxes you do just by virtue of being younger and buying my house later. The burden of taxation with Prop 13 in California all falls on fucking new home buyers and young people.
Oh yeah. And it's getting to the point where
fucking outrageous. All the old people, boomers, man, boomers.
My wife's in real estate, as anyone who's followed us knows. Yeah, and 100%. You're not seeing the decrease in cost that should come with an increase in interest rates. And so anyone who's buying now is just getting double fucked, paying the premium and paying the premium on. Oh, go ahead.
No, and paying the premium on the interest rate.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I kind of my mouth vocalized me thinking.
What? Light bulb. What, wait, Steve? Light bulb.
No, I remember watching Wealthy On, which is a show with Adam Taggart. It's a financial show on YouTube. Adam Taggart used to be the right-hand man of fucking Chris Martenson on Peak Prosperity, who's been around for days. Chris Martenson's crash course I took back in 2013 or 2014 or whatever.
Yeah, we actually have a video of that in it.
Yeah, we do. In his crash course, I highly recommend to everybody, especially lefties who talk about all this stuff but don't actually have any education or experience in it. And then they just kind of repeat what they say while they also repeat what they read and see on YouTube, but while also saying, oh, we're the alternative to the mainstream media. I'm like, but you're not critically thinking and going and seeking your own understanding of this. You're just regurgitating mainstream media. So the only thing you're doing is you're repeating what they say and then saying, oh, it's bullshit. And you're like, I'm so edgy. So go out and actually fucking learn how the system works if you want to fucking fight the system. But sorry, I'm throwing my old expired AARP cards at all you fucking kids.
Get off my lawn and pay your taxes.
And actually learn how the fucking system works instead of pretending you're fucking edgy without actually grasping what it is. Anyway, Adam Taggart did a show a while back. We might have even played a clip from it, or maybe we just had a conversation about it. But they were talking about
70 episodes.
I forgot at this point. But he was talking about this was a year ago almost, maybe 6-8 months ago. He was talking about housing market corrections. No, it was around the beginning of the year, maybe January. So yeah, about 6 months ago or whatever. They were talking about housing market corrections and how with the Fed raising interest rates, and with this kind of COVID and people moving around and cost of living crises in places like California and on and on and on, that there was going to be a real reshuffling, and that they're like, this is hopeful for people who have found home ownership out of reach. because there has to be, what they said is like, he had a housing market expert who from Barclays, which is a major kind of analysis institution, financial analysis or whatever. At any rate, he had this guy from Barclays who was like, it's just not sustainable. Like, housing prices are not sustainable. As interest rates go up, housing prices will come down, and interest rates continue to creep up, and housing prices haven't really been affected. I think I might have told you that at some point. I'm in like, yeah, I'm expecting, or whatever, based on what I've assessed, the sources I've used, they're all expecting, they're all tied into that shit. I don't give a fuck what markets do, like, because they really don't affect my life, generally speaking.
Yeah, but they're like investments, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any.
It's all rich people smile charts.
Yeah, I liquidated my 401k like immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as I stopped being obligated to put money into it, because I was like, this is just a fucking casino, bro. It's not going to be there when I retire. So
I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened to all the boomers in 2008. All their retirement funds went, and now we're stuck paying for their retirement.
Yep,
more directly than we were before.
But at any rate, they were saying housing prices were going to fall by 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe even 25% over the course of a year and a half or so. And 6 months, a half a year into that, a third into their predicted time frame. Like, I have not yet seen evidence. I still see houses going up for sale. They sit up for sale a bit longer, but houses are still selling. And if you look at the prices, they're selling for what they were fucking a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So housing prices, maybe it stopped housing price growth, but it hasn't caused a reversal for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then like the real shitty part of housing is like, you think that new houses are going to solve the problem for you, but they don't.
They're not affordable.
And they get to set the price, and not only do they get to set the price, but then that means that when an appraiser goes in and uses that house as a comparable, they're using it at a price that was just made up out of thin air. Cost plus whatever the hell that company wants to do. Profit. And then and then if they later on decide like, oh well, we want to get even more money, they can raise that price and even more, and then that becomes a comparable, and the price goes up. So
for everything.
So basically the housing cost, no matter what like the appraisers do, is going to go up, because you're going to eventually use those new houses as comparables, and the are just going to the businesses are just going to keep raising the prices because they can.
Yeah. And it's funny because the way that politicians locally talk about it, local politicians are generally the ones responsible for land use policy and like urban or suburban development. They're always like, oh, these developers are in the business of housing people. You have to go up to the microphone, get your 3-minute speaking time, and be like, they're really in the business of housing people? I don't think that's how it works. I think they're in the business of making money, and the product that they produce happens to be housing. But it is not in their. They don't give a fuck. Well, if some fucking foreign investor buys that and it sits empty, because at that point they're fucking hands clean. They're not in the fucking business of housing people. They're in the business of building housing units, and what happens to those housing units is not their fucking problem.
And they're basically printing money and then using that money to buy local governments and get contracts for just about everything.
And on the point of housing again with the developers, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna have all this, more housing means lower prices, and it's like, but people don't understand, like, these politicians, especially these ones that say they're conservatives and they really understand how the economy works. And the reason you can't trust a fucking liberal or a lefty with the economy is because they have all these ideas and they don't really understand how it works. But these, at the same time, these motherfuckers are like, supply and demand, it's not difficult. It's like inelastic commodity. It's not difficult.
Well, not only
do you not understand that, like, housing is a fucking necessity.
Right. And last I checked, there are still more houses than people, or families anyway, in the United States. So if supply and demand were true, they would be almost free. So I don't think it's correct.
No, it's a lot of things. And also, moreover, it doesn't matter if you build 300 houses in Chico when you're actively going and advertising and asking people to leave their expensive house in the Bay Area to come move to Chico where housing is cheaper, because that house that is cheaper for that person is more expensive for everybody here that's lived here for generations, who is being displaced because they can no longer afford housing.
There's been a lot of talk about that here. I've been in the subreddit for the state of Maine for a long time, just because, you know, thinking about moving there. A lot of people there are just like, I can't afford, you know, I'm 18 or about to turn 18. Like, will I be able to live here after my parents kick me out of the house? I don't think so.
No.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's been a real problem, right? Because I remember a friend of mine who was from Pleasanton, which is a community in the East Bay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she kept bringing up, she's like, I liked growing up in Pleasanton. It's like, I wish I could live in Pleasanton. But what you notice is there's not a lot of people starting families in Pleasanton because no one can afford to live in Pleasanton.
Yeah.
And that's the thing everywhere, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting as the population ages and eventually like doesn't want to live there anymore. You know, like your parents, they're like, oh, it's too much money, we're going to move somewhere else. And like, yeah.
Did you have additional on this
clip? I did.
I'm sorry. Carry on. Shut me up.
I moved it away. No,
I moved it away. We're shooting the poodoo.
That's why I didn't interrupt you.
Point, and we still want to see that inflation rate continue to come down.
Okay, so then the question is, how will that impact me? Just a regular person.
Well, let me look at you specifically.
Okay.
So most of us have a
regular
real impact that we feel from the Federal Reserve. It seems like this esoteric thing in D.C. that happens, but most of us are either borrowers or savers. And when we borrow money, at least on a short-term basis, those rates will remain high. And even if the Fed stops, even if they say, okay, after this meeting, we look back and say that was the end of these rate hikes, they're going to keep the rates higher for longer than many people expect. That means borrowers are going to pay more in interest costs. It means even though the Fed does not control mortgage rates are going to stay high. So
I find that fascinating. Even though the Fed does not control mortgage rates, the Fed controls interest rates. Like, if the interest rate is 5.5%, the bank is not going to give you a mortgage at 4%. So they absolutely control the floor.
They do. There's actually several interest rates. We should do a deeper dive on the Fed sometime.
Into interest rate.
No, just on the Fed itself and how it functions.
Yeah.
But there's a couple different rates that the Fed sets, and it is the floor. You're right.
Yeah.
Because the bank itself, the commercial bank, has additional costs. They have to roll into
they have to pay back
administrating.
And they got to pay back the Fed too.
Yeah. And so your rate is always going to be slightly higher than the Fed rate. But if you notice, March 2022, it was near zero. They had been near zero for like a fucking decade. So the fact that like they're like, oh yeah, we need to cool the economy down because all of that goddamn COVID spending. You mean our $1,400 checks when Biden promised us $2,000 but gave us $14 because he said, well, Trump gave you $6, so I'm just making it an even $2,000.
Yeah.
When other countries, civilized countries, just paid people's fucking salaries. Our country's like, here's $1,400. Good luck.
And maybe if your kids go to school, there's some extra, EBT for food. Yeah.
Well, they expanded school meals for sure. You got more on this?
Oh, yeah. Just a little bit.
So borrowers are contending with those higher costs. Savers, they're partying. They're partying like it has not been this great in a long time.
Right.
Because it's amazing. You can go online, you can find.
Yeah.
Was that it?
No.
Finish your clip and then I'll fucking yell at it.
5% rates on savings and CDs. And this is an amazing turn of events for people who just a few years ago were contending with 0% interest. So I think that this is a real impact that we could all feel. We're sort of getting used to it. The most important thing is that we realize when the Federal Reserve speaks, when we hear these officials talk, they are guessing about the next path forward.
Yeah. I like that line.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually know.
I didn't actually want to keep that, but it is good.
Yeah, they only have so many tools at their disposal. And what they're trying to do is prop up an economy whose fundamentals are fucking broken.
Yeah.
Right. But when she's like, oh, savers are really liking it. Like, first of all, certificates of deposit are not regularly used.
Mm-hmm.
They might be in some kind of more like low risk investment strategies in retiree accounts.
Yeah.
They might use it because they're guaranteed, right? Like they have so if whatever happens, like they guarantee the money to them. And it's backed by the good faith and credit of the United States of America. So like most people consider it pretty safe, but they've always given really shit interest rates. I think I don't know, and you can look it up right now, the interest rate for a CD, but my guess is that the interest rate on the CD, even with higher Fed rates, are still below the rate of inflation.
5.38.
And the rate of inflation has been
2.97, down from 4.05, and then last year it was 9.06. So it is
9.06.
It is getting under control.
Yes, but remember, lies, damn lies, and statistics. Housing, education, healthcare, among a few other primary expenses for most households, are not included in the CPI.
Yeah.
And so those have been going up in cost over and over and over again for decades and hasn't been counted as inflation. We were just talking about how no one can fucking afford housing.
Right.
And that's not counted as inflation. Even though people have a hard time going out and spending consumer dollars.
Oh, yeah.
When they spend so much fucking money on paying back their student loans because their education was so expensive, or paying for really expensive housing, even just renting, where they're not even building any equity or credit.
They just advertised a unit that is basically the same as ours for $1,750, and ours was
two bedroom, two bath,
and ours was $900 4 years ago.
Wow.
And has gone up to $1,210, and will go up to I think
the maximum they can raise it under the state law, which is like 10%, right?
Yeah, so it'll be like $1,320 or whatever next year.
But their objective is obviously to get there.
To get to $1,750, yeah. And this is not...
by that point, $1,850, $1,900.
Probably. And this is not a nice place either. It's like you know... Like,
you said it's like 800 square feet, right?
This one is 1,000, I think, or 900. One of the two. Anyway, it's got a pool. You know, they don't like use chemicals on properly or like clean debris from ever. And so it's like, well, all the amenities are pretty shabby. You know, they don't paint. Like,
right. They were cutting down all the shade trees that might help cut
your
electric
shade trees. They don't paint. You know, like definitely maintenance isn't done. They wait until it's an emergency and then pay twice as much and then use as an excuse to raise rent.
Dude, it's fucking robbery. You're paying $1,200.
Yeah.
It's bad. I know, man. I'm sorry. Next, moving on. Little update from the front.
Yeah.
This is Military Summary Channel. I highly suggest everybody that's interested in this conflict and interested in actually trying to determine what's happening on the ground, independent of whatever boosterism is paraded across your mainstream media and your fucking, you know, your whatever they call them, NAFO or whatever. There's terms. The internet makes all sorts of fucking terms for people.
Yeah.
But anyway, the kind of unthinking, uncritical support for Ukraine people that are on Twitter or whatever. Definitely highly recommend checking out a channel like this guy. Oh, sorry, X. I thought they just rebranded. Are they not even calling it Twitter anymore?
I I don't think so.
That'd be a story in and of itself.
It would be.
What a fucking... like, just a dude who's just like, I'm so smart, I'm going to do things the way that I think they should be done. And even though it makes no fucking sense. Like, rebranding a big company like that is probably a massive expense. And really nets you nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, it's going to piss people off. Like me, because now you're going to correct me and say it's X, not Twitter.
Yeah. Just
like I get corrected all the time and being like, oh, they're a they. No, they're a he again. No, they're a they. Fucking don't give a shit. You're going to fucking change it every 2 months. Like, I don't give a shit.
That is difficult.
At any rate, so Military Summary Channel is one of the better ones. There are a number of channels who do this kind of thing. He tends to be the most consistent in terms of delivering content every day. He often does a twice a day update, and he's in Belarus, so he's at the same time. So he kind of does a morning, like, hey, this is what happened overnight, and then he does one in the evening. This is what happened during the day.
Yeah.
And he's been updating his map. He speculates. He'll tell you if he thinks something is speculative. He always tries to find geolocated videos, but I just wanted to share this first bit of clip because it seems like Ukraine, after their embarrassing trip to the Vilnius summit in Lithuania, to the NATO summit, where most of NATO were just like, fuck you, like, we're over it.
Yeah.
Like, you have not delivered what we wanted, which is we wanted you as a small country with like using basically like conscripts stolen off the streets to try and fight like an organized and well-armed and somewhat well-trained like superpower military. And where you're just a piece of shit because you didn't deliver, and so you're not allowed into NATO, which is all they've ever wanted, and all the US really wanted, but they've kind of backed off that now. At any rate, they are trying to prove that they are worthy of more support from the West, because the West is tired of fucking giving them weapons when they're just throwing them away.
Yeah.
So here's just a quick update.
We can say that the decisive week has come. The week when the entire, probably summer campaign will be determined. Whether the Russians are going to win or the Ukrainians will be able to penetrate the Russians' defense belt and to successfully counterattack and to regain their lost positions in the vicinity of Artyomovsk and, of course, in the Zaporozhye area in the vicinity of Bradley Square. But yet, the Russians were able to repel every single Ukrainian attempt to attack.
Every single attack.
On every single front lines. First, of course, we're going to start with Zaporozhye area, with Bradley Square, with Petykhatki area. This morning, as we discussed in the morning video of the local time, the Ukrainians launched significant offensive operation in this area, and probably that attack, that wave of attack, those waves of attack were the heaviest since the beginning of this special military operation attack by the Ukrainian forces that was implemented by the Ukrainian forces. That offensive operation started at 4 a.m. of the local time. At 5 a.m., as we discussed in the previous video, the Russians managed to calculate up to 15 armored vehicles. At 6 a.m. of the local time, the Russians start receiving the first numbers of the results of Ukraine attack, and the Russians managed to shut down at least 4 tanks. At 7 a.m., the Russians managed to destroy 5 tanks, and at 8 a.m. of the local time, the Ukrainians were completely defeated and were forced to step back. After that, there was few updates that the Ukrainians sent more and more waves, but it was very difficult to understand whether that was speculation or attempt to reduce the media effect of that greatest defeat.
Yeah.
Was that all the way to 1:50? Oh,
Yeah.
It was a little past that.
Yeah, it was 2:01.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. That was one place along the front line. That's not the whole story. Go ahead and go to the show notes and watch his video, and he'll go through each different place. But I thought that was a fairly concise, for him, who's not a native English speaker, fairly concise description of one part of the battlefield. And he said they started at 5. By 6, they had lost 15 tanks. By 7, they had lost another 5. by, or he said armored vehicles, so that includes the armored personnel carriers and stuff. They lost 5 tanks, and now within the next hour, they lost another 5 the next hour. Elsewhere, he says estimated losses, I think, were around 150 to 200 wounded or killed on the Ukrainian side. And they just kept throwing wave after wave, and all of this equipment that our tax dollars paid for and German tax dollars paid for and UK and Spain and Poland and everybody else who's fucking giving shit up, right? Which is a lot of countries. I'm always surprised when I see the list because we're Americans, so we're like, oh, we're sending more shit, but like, dude, they get shit from everywhere. There's a ton of countries like supplying weapons into this place that, as we discussed before the Ukraine conflict kicked off in 2014, was already like a very notorious pass through for illicit weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've covered that before.
Yeah, exactly. So like, this is a terrible place to be like, you know, making top heavy with weapons. At any rate, I just thought it was interesting. It was just like, yeah, it started at 5. It was over by 8 because they just kept throwing shit at an entrenched enemy. And the way that Russia has fought this war, the way the Western press is like, oh, they haven't done anything. They're losing. And it's like, no, they took what they needed for now, and then they fucking dug in, and now they can't be moved. They can be moved, but it's going to be on the United States or France or the UK to use fucking battlefield nukes. Because the only way you're going to break a defense like that, I mean, not necessarily, right? Air power would be a big deal because that's one of the things that's given Russia an advantage, as far as I know, is that they haven't been able to provide supportive cover. They haven't been able to provide supportive cover to their armored unit movements. And so they've just got picked off.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they'll use aviation assets to like suppress artillery. Like they'll come in and either strafe or they'll drop some bombs or whatever. Probably more bombing than strafing because of anti-aircraft missile systems. They'd probably just be concerned about losing their air assets, but doing some kind of maneuvers airborne to suppress artillery fire, because that's really, the artillery is just, I mean, I've heard comparisons to World War One. I wish I had the figures in front of me, but it's something like Russia is shooting like World War One level of artillery, like just like thousands and thousands of shells a day after day after day after day. So it's just fucking crazy, and it's just, you know, I think by now even the mainstream media has accepted that like everything they've been saying for the last fucking year was just straight propaganda and not rooted in reality.
Might have been wrong.
Yeah, but at any rate, I think it's really important to keep an eye on that. I watch his fucking updates every day. I watch Battlefield updates from a couple different people like every single day, and most every single day. Just trying to understand it and understand how they're moving and what's happening, because the easiest way to know what's bullshit and what's not is find out what's happening on the ground. You can't say someone's winning just because you got a feeling, right? Like, what are the conditions? I heard someone 2 months in, a person who knows tactics, a retired colonel, Army colonel, who operates this kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of pseudo-religious, but they have a lead, they call it a leadership institute, but they just get like mostly like young men to go out and play war. They have I think it's called the mile system, but it's the same basically laser tag setup that the military uses for actual combat training. Yeah, and they have, you know, fucking explosions and the smell of gunpowder and loud noises and
that was
all sorts of shit to teach people how to fucking maintain their fucking head when they're, you know, they're at imminent risk of death.
That was one of the more interesting parts of boot camp, to be sure.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of mock real world.
Yeah. Like, oh, this person's, you know, are hurt. You got to carry them.
Yep. You got to walk from here to here, and you're just walking, and it's like you're dead. Wait, what happened? It's like you see that T-shirt that just looks like fucking shit stuck in a tree. That was actually a marker for an IED. You're all dead. Fuck. Speaking of warfare, let's talk about our favorite war, the Star Wars.
The Star War.
All right, what do we got now?
Who is this fella?
That's Rex.
No, that's Nik Sant.
Who the fuck is Nik Sant?
Nik Sant. That's him, or Nik Sant.
What's his
so
name?
basically, this guy appeared in Return of the Jedi back in 1983. I have a feeling somebody was like, "Oh, George, we want to make a toy out of him. What's his name?" Like, I don't know, fucking Saint Nicholas. He's got the beard and everything. And they're like, Nik Sant.
Nik Sant.
Got
it. Did they really name him?
Yeah, they named him.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know they named him.
And I like your reaction because, yes, there are a whole bunch of people that are like, "That's Rex." I want to. How old do you think this guy looks?
65.
Okay.
Full white beard, man.
As I did the math, and at Indoor, Captain Rex would have been 72, so not far off.
Okay,
but
I don't think he's 72.
He would be.
I don't think you can be a combat soldier at 72.
Well, I'm saying he was born in 32 BBY.
Yep.
And
that's 3 BBY.
No. This
or 3 ABY. I mean
4 ABY.
Okay, sorry. Whatever.
So he got 36 years, and clone troopers age at twice the speed. He's 72 physically.
Yeah.
So I
think you're right, dude.
I think this dude looks a little bit too young to be 72.
Okay. Do you know where this came from, though?
No, I didn't want to look into it. I was just like, I saw the premise and was just like, the ages.
My understanding is I don't know the reasoning behind Dave Filoni and his animators and designers working on Rebels.
Right.
I don't know what their reasoning was, but they made Rex have a big white beard and a shaved head or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when that was released, they're like, "Oh, it's the fucking dude from the shield generator on Endor."
Yeah. Like, no.
And then that became, he must have been fighting there. And then in Rebels, after they, him and Wolf and Gregor were retired, right?
Yeah, they were all 56 years old physically at that point.
Yeah. And they had retired or whatever on some planet where they can kind of live out the rest of their days. And we're kind of getting a bit of what happened to clones in the Bad Batch in terms of there's been some arcs in there talking about, of course, politics, right? Do we provide them pensions or do we throw them away? And a lot of the Imperial bureaucrats are like, fuck it.
What I don't get,
their property. We don't owe them shit.
What I don't get is that's kind of the beauty of them aging twice as long as you only have to pay them a pension for half as long.
That's true.
Yeah.
A lot of them wanted to continue to serve, right?
Yeah.
So I will say in the Bad Batch, but
so I will say one point real quick is you later see him. I don't have it pulled up, but in a scout trooper armor suit. It is been presumed and perhaps even in the novelization straight out stated that when Han Solo taps on that scout trooper and leads him around the corner, that this guy then gets into his armor for some reason of subterfuge. But you have to imagine that stormtrooper armor was made when clones were still active duty, and so stormtrooper armor would most likely be fit for a clone body, and then scout trooper would be too. So the fact that this guy fits into scout trooper armor,
another
seemingly well, is one point in favor of the Captain Rex argument.
I love it.
I was just thinking about that.
Well, I think you're right. I think that it would be, some people are speculating, hey, let's have Captain Rex in Ahsoka. I'm just let the fucking characters die or do something else. Stop trying to fit everybody that you're attached to into these stories, especially when the time this story takes place is 5 years even beyond that. So he would be physically 75.
82.
Now
82.
There you go. Whatever.
9 BBY. Yeah, he'd be ancient.
Oh yeah, because it's another 10 years or whatever, right? Yeah.